So let's move on to our another question, because we are here in Vietnam, and I think that other people in other countries are also very intrigued in this question as well. Because do you we would like to ask Dr. John Lennon is what we would like to ask is, do you feel like graffiti is going to be suitable or applicable in every country? Because there are different themes, different cultures, as well as different points of views, and how we were raised and how a country is created as well as operated. So of course, there will not be same graffitis everywhere. There will be different ways of implementing them in every single country. So do you feel that it is suitable for graffiti to be integrated into different cultures and
It's
countries?
a great question. I want to make sure that this is clear. That in my
Yes.
work is that I never want to say that the graffiti in one culture or what it means in one culture means the same thing in a different culture. That is absolutely not what I'm adamant against that. Um, and in fact, and that's one of the reasons why when I write about different areas, I go to those areas. I walk the streets. I talk to the artists. I talk to the politicians. I talk to the entrepreneurs, because I think it is important. Everyone is a specific example. Let me give a perfect example. So I was in Beirut, walking through Beirut with a person I knew who was from the scene, right? And I saw this.
Yes.
Oh, I saw on a wall, it was an image of a car that was bombed out. And so I immediately said, oh, so this is about the recent conflict and the wars in Lebanon. And my guy said, no, that's just a symbol to show that this is where people are going to buy drugs. So if I would have, with my kind of white U.S. mentality, wrote about that and said, "Oh, this is all about bombings and kind of political situation," I would have been completely wrong. So part of it, I use that as an example because I need to understand it by talking to people and doing this. But despite that, there is never going to be a complete connection between or a photocopy of one scene in another scene. Everyone is materially connected, and that's my whole thing, is the materiality. But I will say this, can we learn things by examining the different types of scenes that are growing, and can we learn from those things? And that I do think it is true. So to answer your question, um, New York City graffiti in 1970s were really popular. They were then put into museums, academics wrote about them, and what happened was graffiti festivals started all around the world in which they would invite those kind of early practitioners to, let's say, Germany, for example. And they would go to Germany and they would draw in a museum and they would put their art in a museum. But while they were officially there for that reason, then they would meet up with kids who were interested in graffiti in Germany or other places that they were brought, and they would go bombing at night. And so what they would do is kind of help kids who were just interested sort of about this community, and they would learn, oh, I can go out every night and I can hit it. And suddenly in Germany, there was a huge graffiti scene. It still is present to this day. That kind of then that German kid goes to Sweden, for example, or goes to another country, and he meets up with kids and he starts doing graffiti. And so therefore there's this like kind of international scene that was happening, and that exploded obviously with the internet as well. So when I was in Cairo, I met up with a guy who was a graffiti writer who brought me to his kind of working class neighborhood way out in the city. Uh, and what I was able to see is he was using this kind of lettering in the back of apartment buildings and doing graffiti. And his neighbors supported him because they were like, "What is this? We don't get this." So all of a sudden, kind of, he was interested in 1970s graffiti, but he's really kind of putting forth this new kind of movement. So I'm answering it a little long, so let me just shut up and say this, is that I do not think you can replicate graffiti scenes, but you can be influenced by each other, and those influences are internationally based, and it's really fascinating to me.
All right. Thank you for your questions. That is actually very informative.